Thank you everyone for joining us tonight for the last talk. And what I'm going to be doing is looking at educating the next generation in archaeology. So I'm just going to try to take you what the process was for that and how we went about it and what the lessons are. So if you think about when someone mentions archaeology, what do people typically think of? And I think you can probably all agree it's things like Indiana Jones, I think comes to mind most often. And for the younger generation, maybe things like video games like Tomb Raider, or some of the TV shows that are on right now, like The Curse of Oak Island or Josh Gates with Expedition Unknown. So these are some of the things I think that most people think of when they think of archaeology. And in keeping with the Indiana Jones theme, I thought we would go ahead and go into the archives. And the question that I wanted to ask was, how can we educate the next generation to value our history? And archaeology really came to mind with that. When I first started researching, how can we do the next generation? Because when I was involved with Fort St. Joseph, I noticed a lot of the people, we didn't have a lot of the younger people coming and doing things, except for maybe the open house. So I started researching what were some of the things that students needed to do. And one of the things was critical thinking. And this seems to be a buzzword the last few years. And critical thinking, it's basically, it's trying to get the kids to think critically about things instead of just memorizing things. And if you're looking at critical thinking, you're looking at curiosity, which is the desire to learn more about what you're looking at and looking at more evidence. And under critical thinking, we've got the skepticism. So that's basically, we want them to be able to not just blindly believe what everyone tells them, but be able to look at something and say, I'm not sure that's quite right. So we want them to have that different aspect in there. And we also want them to have the humility. And that's basically if you have some more evidence that comes in and you think that you've decided on what happened at this particular site, but we've got more evidence now. So the ability to say, you know what, I could be wrong. There's more evidence there. So critical thinking was on the top of my list when I wanted to go ahead and do some education. And these are some of the other things that we took a look at. Problem solving. I wanted to include in science, social studies, math. And if you take a look at all these different things, I think archaeology was a very, very good and important thing that we could actually take all these things and bring archaeology into the classroom and be able to look at all these different things. Some of the other things that I wanted to look at was I wanted the students to be able to learn about people that came before us. I want them to have hands-on participation. I wanted them to be able to ask questions, make inferences, not just listen to somebody talk and memorize again. I wanted to bring into the aspect, the history, the social studies. How do I learn about the past? And it's not just archaeology that you can learn about the past from. We've got historians, we've got folklore, oral accounts, historical documents. There's a lot of things that can go on to look at the history. I wanted them to be able to pull in math and geography and language arts. And I think anybody that's done much archaeology will know that documentation is a big, huge part of archaeology. And one of the things that I wanted to and was hoping to do with the education of students in archaeology, not just these things, but how they can become stewards of the history and some of our archaeological sites, so that we have a next generation that really thinks it's important. So looking at all these, I just didn't have the expertise to do all of these. And when I wanted to do it, collaboration had to be done. That was the only way that I could see getting this done. And it was collaboration, not with just archaeologists, but I had to have the collaboration and the support of teachers. Teachers are the ones that go into the classroom. When that door shuts, the teachers are the ones, they're the ones that have the skills to be able to teach kids. I don't have those skills. A lot of archaeologists don't have the skills to teach students. So the collaboration that we had between archaeologists and teachers was just crucial. So I did start off at Climax-Scotts with 3 different, we have some elementary teachers, some middle school teachers, and some high school teachers. And we sat down and we talked about it, and they thought, you know, archaeology, we could maybe, you know, bring that in, but we wanted to know what grade would be best to fit archaeology. So, you know, we talked about it, and you could build a program around very, very young students, you know, looking at even simple as a coloring book, you know, what's going on here? You know, I see somebody's in the water. Is that their beach chair there? Or you can look at some other things, you know, is the dog coming out of the tub or going into the tub? Those kind of things. And you can get a little more, excuse me, advanced and, you know, giving them some more things to look at. So this is just farmers, you know, what's going on? You know, what else is going on besides it's just a farm scene? So those are some of the things we wanted to do. And it was important to the teachers that we bring in a lot of hands-on items too. So we talked about, okay, we can bring in some different things. We can maybe put the kids in 2 different groups. We can give one group seeds and corn cobs and like a concave rock, and we can give another group maybe some bones and some charred wood and some spear points, and then say, okay, you know, what can you tell me about the people that may have been there? Well, hopefully they would come up with farmers and hunters. So, you know, again, trying to figure out what was the age group that we really wanted to focus on. One of the things back in 2015 in the spring, Fort St. Joseph, the field school actually had it a couple weeks earlier than what they normally do. So school was still in session. And Fort St. Joseph and the museum actually invited about 600 students, 3rd grade through 6th grade, and they went through this program. And we took a lot of the kids from Climax-Scotts, and the first thing they did was they visited the museum, and they got to learn about the artifacts that the museum has, and they got a lesson in fur trade. So what were some of the different fur trades, you know, what were some of the different furs? And then they thought that was pretty cool. And again, this was just a snapshot, but we also wanted to see what was the interest of the students. From the museum, then they went to the actual dig site, and they were able to talk with a lot of the students that were doing it and ask questions to real archaeologists. And the kids really enjoyed that. And we had a gorgeous day, fortunately, to go. So we could see that, you know what, there was some spark of interest in those kids. And so we discussed it, and we came up with basically 5th grade was what we really wanted to do. It really fit into the Michigan standards that the teachers have to do. We didn't want to just create a program for archaeology that didn't include all the standards that the teachers have to do, because if it doesn't fit those standards, they're not going to use it. So we created Archaeology CSI. The CSI came from one of the teachers, and that was cultural scene investigation, and it kind of fit right in there.
That is cool.
So the lesson plan format, what we set up was the objective in each format. In each lesson, there'll be an objective, some essential questions that the teachers should ask, what we want the students to learn, and also the subjects. And when I talk about the subjects, we're talking about the different requirements from the state of Michigan. Like this is the particular social studies unit that it's covering, or the math unit, or language arts, those things. So those are included in the lesson format so that they actually are doing the standards that they need to do. In the curriculum, we actually have all of the worksheets are created for the teachers so that the teachers do not have to create anything for this particular curriculum. In there is also vocabulary words, and we put a lot of background information in it and how the teacher might want to structure the lesson, and just some pointers on what they might want to do. So after the first time we went through this, we really decided that we needed to have a pre-lesson, not only for the students, but for the teachers too. So I put together a lot of resources, videos, things information that's available in books, on the web for the teachers that they could use to prepare. And this is one of the worksheets. This is just a worksheet on tools used by an archaeologist. And then we asked the students, what other things might they use? So this was kind of a pre-lesson to see how much did they really know about archaeology before we started. And lesson 1, and each one of these lessons builds upon the other one. So it was important that we did it in that order. So lesson 1 is on observation, inference, and evidence. And if you think about observation, it's basically you're using a lot of your different senses to gather information about the world. If everybody was looking at the same thing, we might see different things, but these are things that are facts, that are true. And then inferences is what we really want the kids to be able to do, is to take those observations and explain or interpret what those are. And these are things that archaeologists do all the time. Let me give you just an example. This is a picture of a boy in the pond. And what we would do is we would have the students take a look at it. And, if you look at it, these are some of the observations you might have. The boy's in the water. There's a sailboat in the water. Looks like there's no leaves on the trees. And so these are things that are going on. So these are what we would ask the students, what do you observe in this picture? And then based on those observations, what is your inferences? Well, maybe if the boy crawled out of the water, the goat's going to butt him back in the water, or maybe that branch is going to fall on his head, or maybe he was up in the branch and fell into the pond. So what we want him to do is actually observe something and then go, okay, based on that, what do you think? So again, we're looking at our critical thinking. So these are some of the things that we would do with them. This is just another example. You can get as complicated as you want with those. And let me see if I can do this real quick. This is just an example of the farmhouse that we've added some artifacts to it. So, what can you tell me about the people that lived here? Were there any children? Well, here we've got a tricycle, so maybe there was. What kind of food did they eat? Did they have any evidence of growing crops? So again, observing what you've got there and making inferences and trying to come up with what happened here. In lesson 2, just to give you an example of what it is, lesson 2 is just about what is archaeology. The vocabulary words on here is anthropology, archaeology, archaeologist, archaeological site. And with this, I brought in a lot of not artifacts, but things from home that were maybe from a different generation that the kids didn't recognize. And it was amazing, some of the things that they were like, I've never seen that before. Well, we had the teachers basically take a pop can, and she was like, you know what, I'm an archaeologist, and I just found this in the ground, and I have no idea what it is. I've never seen anything like this before. She goes, it's smooth, it has some writing on it, and wow, there's this little tab here. Well, you know what? Maybe they had a rope or a string, or maybe, you found a chain with it and they put it around their neck and used it as a necklace. Well, again, it's just to grab the kids' attentions to go, well, you're being silly, but, looking at stuff in a different way, was really important for us to be able to do. So the other thing in lesson 2 is, what is archaeology? And we really thought, you know, a lot of the kids are going to go, okay, well, archaeologists look at dinosaurs. Well, I had one student in the first class that we did, he was like, no, the paleontologist. And I'm like, smart kid. So I thought was pretty proud of them. But basically letting them know that an artifact is something that has been modified by humans. It's not, you know, a frog wouldn't be an artifact, or is not something that we would call an artifact, or a bird, or a dinosaur. So again, it's bringing them in on the low level, and we're working up. Lesson 3 on context is really important when it comes to archaeology. And it's the importance of where those artifacts are found. Because if you think about, here, we've got a Mayan ruin, and we found this really neat Mayan bowl here at the at the spot where it was dug up. So if you think about that, what can you tell about that artifact if you find it in situ or in place, versus sitting on somebody's bookcase at home? You know, we can't tell anything about that. So trying to tell them, you know, the importance of where that artifact was in relation to the other things is really crucial. And to give them an idea of that, there's this game that we would do, and we would break the kids into groups, and they would each get one of these different scenarios. And we would have, say, maybe 6 kids in a group, and they would get some index cards, and not letting the other groups know, we would ask them to either draw pictures or write down what it is that they had. So let's take a camp and a campground. Let's say we draw a picture of a tent, and somebody else in the group would draw a picture of a campfire. Well, if you have 6 different things, it's very easy to tell that this is going to be a campground. But then each time we would take it and give it to the next group, we would take away a card, so that by the time we're done, you had 1 or 2 things, and you really can't tell anything about that place because we're missing all these pieces. So again, it's trying to give them the importance of finding things in place and not removing things. We go into stratigraphy and cross-dating, and basically the students are learning how archaeologists determine how old things are. And one of the things that we do with this is, you know, if you had a stack of books and you have 5 stacks of books, which is one's going to probably be the oldest? Well, it's the one that's on the bottom, so that the things that are up towards the top versus the things are newer versus the ones that are down lower, unless you get into what we talked about with the plow zones and maybe well drilling or rodent activity can kind of mess up some of the artifacts being, you know, leveled down. So we go into a lot of that. Lesson 5 also goes into survey and gridding a site, and we talk about different types of surveys. And, you know, if you had a village in the desert, are you going to walk to there to find it? Or, you know, would it be easier to fly? Or lately, the last few years, LIDAR has become very, very important in a lot of archaeological sites. And then we talk about doing the grids and how they would grid the artifacts, because what our ultimate goal is if they do a simulated dig, they're going to be able to know how to use these scales and how to put the artifacts in them. And it also brings in a lot of math for them too. Lesson 6, we go into artifact versus a feature, and let them know that an artifact is something that you can pick up, and it can be taken out of the archaeological site. But a feature, if you remove that, let's say like one of the fireplaces that we've found at Fort St. Joseph, you remove that and you've basically destroyed it. So what's the difference between an artifact and a feature? And a lot of the kids are not real good at measuring things. So we spent some time on, you know, inches versus metric. And we always use metric when we're doing archaeology. So we spent some time on going through that. So we spent time doing that. Lesson 7 was getting ready for our dig, and basically giving them proper techniques of using the trowel and how to screen, and the buckets and dustpans and all those things that we do in the site. So we wanted to make sure that they weren't just going in and digging down, they were doing the proper ones. And then lesson 8, we actually went into using a simulated archaeology box. With that, we were very fortunate. When I was meeting with the teachers and we were designing this, they told me about Lowe's having a toolbox for education grant. And I had 1 week to get it ready and prepared, and we actually received $5,000 from Lowe's for supplies so that we could build these archaeology boxes, which brought about, then we had to design an archaeology box and how to do it. And fortunately, my family was great in helping do this. We actually stained the sides so that you could see stratigraphy levels in the different areas of soil on the sides of the boxes. And we wanted to make sure that they were safe for the kids too. And these kids are not 6'2" and they're not 3'1", but we wanted to make sure that there was the proper size. So included in the curriculum is how to build these archaeology boxes. And we actually built 2 boxes for each. We had 4 units that we did, and each unit had 2 boxes. And I will show you some pictures that we had one for that all the artifacts were in, and another one that they would use and they would sift the dirt into, so we didn't have piles of dirt all over the school parking lot. The other thing that we had to do when we decided we were going to do a simulated dig was figure out, okay, we've got to get artifacts for these kids to do. And we didn't want to put just anything in there. So we came up with a grid on, we've got the primitive ones, we would put those down at the bottom, and then we would put some dirt on top of those. So you're looking at some of the primitive, like spear points, arrowheads, and we got those from the Fort St. Joseph Museum. And then we went into the pre-1600s. What were some of the artifacts that we thought would be there? So we've got some corn and some acorns, deer antlers, mandible. The boys especially loved finding bones and teeth and things like that. And then we went into the occupation zone. So what I've done is just given them some ideas of, these are some of the things that you can bury in these different levels, and given some ideas as far as, you know, how deep down you should go. And then, so these are available for each particular unit that we did. We did two Eastern Woodland units. We did 1 Southwest unit, and we did a Pacific Northwest unit. So we had different artifacts in all of these. And these are just some pictures of some of the students when they were doing their sifting and measuring and documenting. So you can see they really got into it. The first year we did it, we separated out the digging into, you know, we would do a dig for a couple hours, and each of the units, we had buckets available, all the trowels, everything, and they had a check sheet so that they had to find out what was in these and make sure that everything was put back in place when they were done. So we did that over a few weeks. Some of the other times we've done it, they devoted a whole day to doing the digging, which worked out really well. These are just some pictures of some of the groups, and you can see we tried to do it just like Fort St. Joseph with the arrows. And if you look at the units, you can actually see we have north, south, east, and west on the units, on the ledges, and we actually position those so that they actually are in the right way. And then this was my group of overachievers. They actually got to the bottom of the units and found all the different things. So they were required to tag everything that they found, document everything they found. So what they had to do, the dig wasn't the last thing they had to do. They had to be able to learn about how they're going to curate these. And the first thing that they had to do was what happened at your particular site. So they had to take all their artifacts and all the tags and the documentation and put them in the order that they found them. And they had to present back to the class what was going on in that particular unit. You know, where was the location of the unit? And they actually did a pretty good job of that. And again, you know, this was, I think the one here is the Southwest, and actually the Kalamazoo Art Center gave me a lot of pottery that was broken that kind of looked Southwest. So that was kind of fun. But if you think about all these different things, you know, again, we've got the critical thinking, we've got the collaboration, math, social studies, the curiosity, all of these things are incorporated into this curriculum. And hopefully it's something that the students really remember. And the one thing I do want them to remember is that the archaeology sites that we have now, and they can be the future of protecting those. And a wise man once told me that I have passed on to all the students, it's not what you find, but what you find out. And because they know they're always excited about finding treasure or something like that, but it is more important than what you find. It's what you find out. And just some quick acknowledgements. Dr. Nassaney, Erica, Fort St. Joseph, all the field school students and the graduate students, the wonderful people in Niles are just fantastic. And the Climax community schools, the administration, the teachers, the students are great. They're just been really nice to work with. So hopefully we weren't able to do it this last year, but maybe this next year we'll be able to do it. So with that, I will take any questions that you might have.
Wow, that was really great, Sue. Thank you so much. I'm really excited and I hope more schools get involved. So we have a couple of questions in the queue. So the first one is would you suggest that teachers do this type of lesson or curriculum in the fall when they're kind of starting to discuss? I think in 5th grade, they start looking at the fur trade more in the fall, or they start that. I could be wrong.
No, and they do. They actually do. They do start in the fall. And the first time we did it, we did do it in the fall. And it kind of tied in with when they were looking at the fur trade and the French and, coming in. And we did do it the fall, but the weather's kind of yucky.
Right.
And we took, many weeks to go through these. So the first year I did all the lessons with the teacher there, and then she felt pretty comfortable. And then I would just kind of sit back and watch. And, I was there if she needed any questions or needed any help, but she did a great job. And then from then on, we've done it in the spring. And it's just kind of reviews some of the things going on in social studies in the spring, but the weather's been a lot better in the spring than in the fall. We felt like we were kind of rushing it a little bit before the snow kind of started falling.
That's what I was kind of curious, because I knew maybe content-wise it might fit a little bit better in the fall, but then with actually getting to the excavation, you don't really want to be outside doing that when it's cold.
Right.
Taking the students outside. The next question that we have is, are the lessons, do you take like a day per lesson? Is it a couple days? You kind of let the teachers see how it go?
Yeah, some of the lessons we actually put in there about how long they will take. A lot of the lessons you can do in like an hour, maybe an hour and a half, because there is a lot of hands-on and a lot of group work with these. So the kids are actually doing a lot of it. Now, lesson 5 has got a lot involved. So that one could probably be done over several days. So the teacher, we had 2 different classes, but at the time one teacher would do like all the science of both classes and another one would do the social studies. So we kind of broke it up that way, but yeah, they can kind of go at their own pace, whichever fits best for them.
Okay. Oh, someone wants to know where the mud is. So
The
and
mud?
Yeah, just, and then they have a follow-up. Do you cover earth plate shifts, like so earth tectonics and like the way that the layers change in the soil over time, or do you just kind of
we did, and we tried to I tried to get all the artifacts in place like a month or so before, and one year we had it where it pretty much dried out a lot, and we had to actually water the units down before the kids came to get some moisture back in them. Otherwise it was like doing, you know, jackhammer to them. So yeah, but we have lids on all the units and everything, and they were pushed back into underneath a garage type thing.
Were they heavy, those boxes? They look pretty big with all
They are
full.
very heavy, and we actually, with some of the money, in addition to buying the screens and all that, we bought one of those forklift things that you can you know, push down. And even with that, sometimes I need help to get them pushed into place. So they're heavy. They are heavy.
They looked heavy. I was like, oh my gosh. How many hours do the students spend on this, like on an activity? Do they get like an hour of dedicated time, a couple of hours? Does it happen?
They probably had at least 1 hour on each lesson. And like I said, lesson 5 over multiple days. So the first time we did it, we did like maybe a Tuesday and a Thursday. And then the next week we would come in. So yeah. So they had other things to do too. So we just wanted to fit it in where we could.
Was there anything that you used to kind of measure your success with the type of this project, if the students were learning certain abilities?
We actually have, there are some assessments in the curriculum where the teachers can figure out, you know, what they've learned, what they haven't learned. And then the other thing that we wanted to do was looking at some of their testing that they do for the state testing to see if they had done better or not. But we haven't been able to look at those too much yet. Sure,
because you just started this, I mean.
Yeah, we've done it, I think 3 times now. Yeah.
Yeah. Is any other school, do you know, or is it just Climax-Scotts that have been able to use it so far?
Climax-Scotts is the only one that I know of that's using it. There was a Catholic school in Niles, I believe, that was looking at it. And I'm not sure if they've done it or not. But we have it on the Western's website. So anybody can take it and use it however they want to use it. And you don't have to do the dig itself, or you can just do shoe boxes with dirt and just smaller things instead of, we kind of went a little elaborate having the money that we could to build all those.
But other schools could apply for a grant or something like that too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I believe Lowe's does the grants twice a year. So I was actually kind of surprised that that we got it. But yeah, we reported back to Lowe's and sent them pictures, and they were pretty excited with what we had done with it.
How much do you think it cost for the supplies? So just for any school teachers out there thinking about this project.
If we, we probably put about $3,500 into it, but we bought screens and the wood and a lot of the supplies. We bought bags for them to put all the artifacts in. So about $3,500. I think we still had about $1,500 left that we haven't used yet, but we need to get some fresh dirt. So we'll be getting some more dirt in.
That's pretty good though. It's not bad because you can use all of the supplies over and over again.
Oh yeah, they're all in my barn right now.
That's nice. Someone was asking if they want to get this started at their local school, kind of what are some of the first steps do you recommend?
I recommend going, looking through the curriculum, seeing where it fits in, and taking a look at the pre-lessons. The pre-lesson really gives you a lot of information that's out there, videos that you can look at, and doing, you know, as much looking. I think we tried to do as much information as we could in terms of the curriculum to give the teachers guidelines and how to go through and give them scenarios. But I think the pre-lessons and just going in and looking at some of the videos that are online were really helpful.
Do you think that if a school district or a certain county kind of purchase some of these supplies, would they be able to share them, or do you recommend maybe a certain school has it themselves?
I think they could definitely share them, but it might be something that you would have to transport the students to them because they are pretty heavy, and it's not something that you're just going to move around very easily.
Okay. I think I don't see any more in the chat. So if anyone has some last minute questions, go ahead and kind of shout them out now. One of my final questions though, Sue, is, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
That way I can see a little bit more people. Is, do you think that it was more beneficial talking about archaeology in general, or do you think that because you did some artifacts for the Southwest, some for Eastern Native American tribes and like kind of all over the US, or do you think that maybe focusing on one area would be helpful?
I think you have the option to do any of those. Like we did the 4 different units and we did focus 2 of them on the Eastern Woodlands, which is our area. And that was also the area, you know, that they talk about a lot in their social studies in 5th grade, but they also go into Southwest and stuff. For me, it was just to give the kids some variety. And so when they were reporting back, not everybody had the same things. And we did try to mix them up, so.
Yeah, that's some great points. Definitely makes you think about it. I really like how you do the observation and the inferences, because even in the class that I teach is cultural anthropology, I have them kind of go out and do some observation, see what kind of, without talking to anybody, especially right now with COVID, and see what they can come back for. And so it's really interesting that like how they develop and what you start off with in 5th grade and some of the stuff that's coming back now at the freshman level.
Yeah, yeah. It's fun to see how the kids just get involved in it. So again, you know, the more hands-on you can do with them, I think they're going to remember it a lot better.
Well, and I think in some times that maybe without COVID, project members would definitely be able to come out within a certain area and help kind of get this going if anyone was interested.
Yeah, and I've had a couple times when we've done it, I've had some graduate students come or some students, archaeology students come, and they've actually helped out. And it's great to have, you know, at least if you can, 1 person or 2 people helping, assisting, and reminding the kids that they have to switch. Not everybody can dig and sift. Somebody's got to do the documentation, which everybody kind of hated at the most, but it was very helpful when it came down to having to figure out what was going on at their unit. So
are they learning about the student camp like at the project? This is kind of like what we do in our summer camp, but it's more involved, I would say, your curriculum is, because ours we only have the students for a week.
Right.
Both, so.
Right. Yeah, and again, you know, we've tried to do it so that the lessons build upon one another, so that ultimately we are ending up with, you know, doing our simulated dig. But yeah, but I mean, and I do recommend to the kids that when they're old enough to sign up for the camp, and we've had some students at Climax go to Fort St. Joseph and be the kids there doing the field school.
Yeah, I think that the environment would be a little bit different in the summer camp because you actually get to come out to an actual site. It's not simulated. But I think that the kind of the lessons that you're creating are building and creating that for us to kind of expand on in the summer camp.
Yes. Hopefully it's getting them excited about doing something like that.
Or just teaching them about anthropology and archaeology. There's so many people who do not know what that is until they go to college and they're like, what is this on the course list?
Exactly.
is this something I can take for an easy A? I'm not sure.
No.
I know. So, okay, well, this was a great discussion. Thank you again, Sue, for coming around and sticking around for the Q&A, and everyone else that has participated tonight and throughout the series. I really hope that you guys have all enjoyed the presentations as much as we have enjoyed hosting them. And we will get them up, and I'll share where they're going to be posted. They'll probably go out on a YouTube. And oh, is there one last question? Oh, all right. No, nope. Okay, change mine. Okay, just want to make sure. And then everyone have a great night. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.